Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Do you know who that is? That's the first thing I heard when I opened the conference room door. Not hi, not hey man, not even a nod. Just that question, laced with amusement, dripping with mockery, from a man I'd never met before, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I stood there awkwardly, holding a plate of appetizers and a glass of something I didn't recognize, blinking under the overhead lights like I'd just walked into the wrong room. My wife didn't look at me. She just sipped her drink and gave a half smile like she was watching a sitcom and didn't want to ruin the punchline. The guy, dark hair, expensive watch, theater-level confidence, turned to the group and said, louder this time, "That's Riley's husband." The silence was loud. The kind of silence where people aren't sure if they're supposed to laugh or not. Someone coughed. Someone else took a slow sip from their wine. And that's when I realized I wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Let me rewind. No introductions, no backstory. That's not what this is. This isn't about how we met or how things used to be beautiful. This isn't one of those fairy tale setups. This is about the moment I realized my wife had an entirely separate world, and I was nothing but a footnote in it. She told me to come late. Said there was a speech she didn't want me to sit through. So I showed up an hour after it started, dressed the best I could, carrying a little anxious hope in my chest like a kid bringing cupcakes to a party he wasn't invited to. What I walked into was something else entirely. The room was elegant, tall windows, long tables, laughter in corners, soft jazz playing from a Bluetooth speaker somewhere out of sight. Everyone looked like they belonged. Except me. And her coworker, the one with the sharp smile and sharper tongue, made sure I felt it. The moment he said, "That's Riley's husband," I felt the shift. Like I was an exhibit. Like I was there to be observed, dissected, maybe pitted. I offered a weak smile, gave a tiny wave. "Hey," I said, because that's all I ever say when I don't know what else to do. He leaned in a little and said, "Didn't expect you to be so quiet." "Excuse me. Just thought you'd be louder. You know, like Riley always is when she's talking about work." That line hit me sideways. The way he said it. The way she didn't react. No one said anything. Not even her. So I nodded slowly and stepped back out of the conference room, leaving the untouched plate of food on the table behind me. No one followed. I waited in the hallway for 12 minutes. 12. Then I walked back in and pretended nothing had happened. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. Until now. Because what happened next? It made everything impossible to ignore. I didn't say anything during the drive home. Neither did she. Riley sat beside me scrolling through her phone like nothing strange had happened. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but each one got strangled by that tight feeling in my throat. I just kept my eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2, pretending not to hear her laugh softly at something she was reading. Probably a group chat. Probably them. By the time we got back to our apartment, the silence between us felt like a second person in the car. Inside, she kicked off her heels and went straight to the fridge. "Want anything?" she asked, like I hadn't been humiliated in front of a room full of polished strangers who saw me as nothing but the punchline to her private joke. "No," I muttered. "I'm good." She cracked open a sparkling water, took a long sip, and disappeared into the bedroom. No apology. No explanation. Not even a mention of Byron. Yeah, I learned his name later. Byron Carter. Of course it was Byron. Guys like that are always named Byron, or Chase, or something else that sounds like a brand of overpriced cologne. I stayed up on the couch for hours that night. Couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words. "Didn't expect you to be so quiet." What did she tell them about me? 2 days later, I was still chewing on it when Riley left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. Not like her at all. She was always private about her work, always minimizing tabs when I walked by, not in a sketchy way exactly, just protective. But this time, she left it wide open. And one of the tabs? It was a Slack thread. I didn't mean to read it. I really didn't. But the moment I saw my name mentioned in bold, I froze. It wasn't a direct message. It was some kind of team chat called The Vault, probably where they shared unfiltered thoughts about clients or each other. There, between a gif of Nicolas Cage and a blurry photo of someone's spilled wine glass, was a message from Byron. "So Riley's husband is real. I owe Brian $20. Legit thought he was made up." Someone replied, "Nah, he's real. Just looks like he codes alone in basements." And then, from Riley herself, "Be nice, grinning face with sweat, he's sensitive." That emoji. That stupid, dismissive emoji. That was all she had to say. I didn't even know how to process it. I just stared at the screen, blinking, feeling like someone had shoved a towel in my chest, and started twisting. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. My courage curled up and hid somewhere deep in my gut. But I did something else. I took a screenshot. I printed it. And I folded it up and slid it inside her favorite book, the one she kept on the nightstand and claimed she was reading again for the 4th time. She didn't notice it the first day, or the second. I waited. Every time she picked up that book, Dandelion Sky, some literary fiction with a muted cover and overly poetic chapter titles, I watched from the hallway, heart pounding. I kept imagining the moment she'd open it, and the paper would flutter out. She'd bend down, pick it up, unfold it, and just stare. Maybe she'd cry. Maybe she'd finally explain. Maybe she'd apologize. Maybe she'd finally see me as more than some barely tolerated fixture in her life. But nothing happened. Instead, she read her book, closed it carefully, and set it back on the nightstand, like the truth wasn't hiding between pages 211 and 212, silently screaming to be acknowledged. So on the 4th night, I gave up watching. I sat in the kitchen staring into a bowl of untouched cereal that had gone soggy and warm. She walked past me, towel drying her hair, humming something I didn't recognize, then stopped. "You good?" she asked, still not looking at me. "Yeah, I lied." She walked off, humming again, unaware that my mind had spiraled into places I didn't know existed 2 weeks ago. The next morning, something changed. I found the book slightly askew. That might sound like nothing, but Riley never left anything out of place. She folded blankets with military precision. She closed every cabinet door. Her books were always aligned like little soldiers. But this time, the book was angled. A little too far from the coaster. A little too deliberately disturbed. And next to it, the folded paper was gone. She knew. She just didn't say anything. I expected a storm. Instead, I got silence. No confrontation. No yelling. No snide jokes about me snooping. She didn't mention the chat, or the Slack thread, or the way her coworkers mocked me like I was some fragile novelty. That silence. It wasn't peace. It was planning. Later that night, I found a post-it note stuck to the fridge. Just one line, written in her looping handwriting. "Don't go looking for things if you're not ready to hear the truth." I stared at it for a full minute before peeling it off. My hands were shaking. That weekend, she went to a team retreat. 3 days. No contact. Spotty service, she claimed. When she returned, she smelled like someone else's cologne. Not the kind I wear. Not even close. I didn't ask. Instead, I waited until she showered, then checked her suitcase. Inside her makeup bag, wrapped in tissue like some kind of sacred relic, was a note. Folded, stained, with 3 words scrawled in messy blue ink. "He'll never know." But now I did. And for the first time in my marriage, I wasn't sure I wanted to. On Monday, something happened that finally broke the illusion. Riley had left early for work. She was rushing that morning, muttering about back-to-back meetings, her hair half-dried, coffee in a travel mug she never used unless she was too busy for real breakfast. She kissed my cheek on autopilot, keys jingling in her hand, and said, "Don't forget to drop off the rent check." I nodded. I'd been doing it for years. But this time, when I grabbed the envelope off the counter, it felt thicker than usual. Heavier. I didn't open it. Not at first. I stared at it for 15 minutes at the dining table. Something about the weight of it. The neat handwriting on the front, hers. The word property office, written just a little more slanted than normal. And then I did it. I opened it. Inside wasn't a rent check. Inside were 2 folded notes, a small silver key, and what looked like a printed itinerary. At first I thought it was just office paperwork, maybe misfiled. But then I saw the names. One was hers. The other wasn't mine. It was Byron Carter. And the heading on the itinerary? Arbaview Mountain Villas, Couples Escape Package. I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. The notes were short. One was handwritten, not hers. Sloppy, confident scrawl that read, "Bring your red dress. No one will be watching us this time." The second note was typed. It looked like a message from the resort. Check-in time, amenities, reservation details. Room for 2. King Suite. Champagne on arrival. The silver key? It had a tiny wooden tag attached. Cabin 6B. I sat there in that kitchen with the envelope in my lap, trying to understand how we got here. How I became the guy who found out about his own betrayal through a mistaken envelope labeled as rent. It wasn't even the affair itself that crushed me, though that did hurt like hell. It was the way she assumed I'd never look, never question, never know. Like I was just some emotionally soft ornament collecting dust in the corner of her real life. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. When she came home that evening, I handed her the envelope. I didn't say a word, just gave it to her and walked back to the bedroom. She didn't follow. She didn't knock. She just stayed in the kitchen. And then I heard it, the soft, nervous laugh. Not the one she used with me, the one she used with them. Like it was all a game. The key sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days. Neither of us spoke about it. Riley didn't offer an explanation. I didn't ask for one. But every time I passed the counter, I felt it there, cold, smug, silent. Like a dare I was too broken to answer. I stopped sleeping. I started moving differently. I kept the lights dim. I ate less. The silence between us, already a worn-out thread, became something sharp and stretching, like a tripwire we both avoided stepping on. But then came Thursday, and Riley's phone buzzed around 10 p.m. while she was in the shower. She always brought it with her, always. But this time, maybe out of habit or maybe because she thought I was too gutless to ever look, she left it face up on the bed. It was locked, but I knew her passcode. She once told me it was the time her father died. Too sad for anyone to guess, she'd laughed, sipping wine on our second anniversary. I typed in 0941. The screen opened. It wasn't the first message that destroyed me. It was the nickname, Byron Carter. Tell Snowflake I'll have her screaming by midnight. Don't forget the cabin key. Winking face. Snowflake. That was mine. That was our name. From the first winter we spent together in Vermont, when she slipped and I caught her, laughing, calling her a snowflake because she melted so fast in my hands. She gave it to him. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just a kind of clarity. A numb, crystalline stillness. Like I'd slipped out of my body and was watching everything from above. I took a screenshot. Emailed it to myself. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I responded. Me, from her phone, can't wait. Let's make this one unforgettable. His reply came instantly. That's my girl. I locked the phone, placed it back exactly as I found it, and walked out onto the balcony to breathe. The air was freezing, but I didn't feel it. I just stared at the skyline and thought, what happens if I go there? What happens if I use that key? Because now I had the cabin number, the date, the code, and just enough quiet madness to follow through. I drove up to Arbaview alone. Didn't pack anything. No suitcase. No toothbrush. Just the envelope, the key, and the shaking breath I hadn't fully exhaled since Tuesday. I wasn't even sure what I planned to do when I got there. I didn't feel like a man preparing for revenge. I didn't feel strong or righteous. I just felt hollow, like something had already broken inside me, and I was only going to witness the debris. The road curved through pine-covered hills, frosted with early snow. It was beautiful, quiet, the kind of silence people drive hours for, to escape. Riley wasn't escaping. She was hiding. Cabin 6B was tucked at the far end of the ridge, almost out of sight. No neighbors close enough to overhear anything. That was probably the appeal. There was one car out front. A silver Range Rover. His. Of course he drove something that smug. I parked farther back, near a line of trees. Killed the engine. Waited. My hands gripped the key like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I approached the cabin slowly, boots crunching against the icy gravel. The front porch light was on. Soft glow. Romantic, probably. I wondered if they were drinking wine. If they were in front of the fireplace. If she had already changed into the red dress. I didn't knock. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The cabin was warm. Too warm. Fire crackling in the stone hearth. Scented candles lit on a table near the couch. 2 glasses of red on a tray. No voices. No footsteps. But I heard it. The faint rustle of movement from the hallway, and a muffled laugh. Hers. Then his voice, low and satisfied. Let's see if Snowflake melts. I didn't move. I couldn't. I stood there in the middle of their fantasy, unseen, like a ghost haunting a story I no longer belonged to. Then a shadow passed down the hallway. And that's when Riley stepped out. She didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She just froze, like someone who walked into the wrong memory and realized too late it wasn't fiction. Our eyes locked. She was wearing the red dress. The one I'd bought for her on her birthday. Riley didn't speak right away. Neither did I. We just stood there. Me in the doorway holding a key that was never meant for my hand. Her in the red dress I once thought looked like love. The air in the cabin changed. That cozy warmth from the fireplace turned stale in a blink. Her lips parted slightly, like she had something rehearsed but forgot the first line. Then I heard him, his voice trailing from the hallway behind her. "Babe, you seen the—" He stopped when he saw me. "Byron." He looked exactly how I imagined he would in that moment. Smug, turning into pale confusion. Like someone whose punchline just walked in wearing real consequences. No one moved. The fire crackled, and somewhere outside, a branch creaked under fresh snow. I set the key down on the wooden table. "So this is it," I said. My voice didn't shake like I thought it would. It was calm. Final. "This is where you go when you say you're networking." Riley stepped forward, barefoot on the cabin floor. "Emery, I can explain." "No," I cut in. "You can't. Because I already read your messages. I saw the envelope. I watched you walk through our home like none of this would ever touch me." She winced. Byron shifted, like he was deciding whether to defend her or defend himself. In the end, he did neither. Riley exhaled. "It wasn't supposed to be serious." I blinked. "And yet you gave him my nickname. You brought the dress I gave you. You called it unforgettable." She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the door. "I made a mistake. But not leaving," I said. "Not choosing him. The mistake was getting caught." That silence again. That painful, familiar silence. She whispered, "I didn't want to hurt you. But you didn't want to stop either." I turned to Byron, who finally found his voice. "This is between you two," he muttered, raising his hands. "Don't flatter yourself," I replied. "You were just the keychain." He narrowed his eyes, but I was already walking past him. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't throw anything, or yell, or beg. I just stepped out into the snow and let the cold bite me clean. I didn't hear from Riley for 5 days. No calls. No texts. Just silence. It was the kind of silence that used to paralyze me. The same kind I used to fill with anxious apologies for things I never did. But this time, it felt different. It felt earned. Clean. Like stepping out of a smoky room and finally breathing again. I stayed at a cheap motel just outside the city. Plastic coffee, flickering hallway lights, thin towels, it didn't matter. It was quiet. And it was mine. On the third night, I wrote down everything. Not just what happened at the cabin, but everything before it. The way she started smiling at her phone more than at me. The nights she stayed out late without an excuse. The moments I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. I wrote until the ink bled through the paper. And when I was done, I didn't cry. I felt lighter. When I finally returned home, Riley was gone. Half the closet was empty. Her perfume was missing from the bathroom counter. A yellow envelope sat on the kitchen table with my name in her handwriting. Inside were the divorce papers. No letter. No explanation. Just signatures and a note from her lawyer. And you know what? That was fine. I made coffee. I opened the window. I called my brother, the one I hadn't spoken to in almost a year because Riley thought he was too immature. We talked for 2 hours. Laughed about nothing. I told him everything. Later, I walked into the spare room and started cleaning it out. Not out of sadness, but because I had a thought. Maybe I could turn it into something. A workspace. A music room. Something that was mine again. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone's accessory. I felt like a person. So no, I didn't get revenge. I didn't throw her stuff in the snow. I didn't torch the cabin or trash the place or post screenshots online. I simply left. And I didn't look back. Because sometimes, the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever walked away from something toxic, a relationship, a job, a belief, and come out stronger on the other side, tell us in the comments. Or share a powerful moment from history where someone made a quiet choice that changed everything. We read them all. And if this story spoke to you, subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more emotional, true-to-life tales just like this one. See you in the next story.